Hello, everybody. Great to have you along for yet another edition of Creating Champions of Change through a Culture of Civility. It's called Leadership America, and we do so with courage, commitment, character, compassion, and not confrontation, but conversation. My name is Scott Murray.
And I'm Angel Carlton. We're glad you're here. We are making a difference in our community every way that we can here at Leadership America by bringing the champions to you who are championing change.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're talking about today. And today, Scott, I'm really excited about this topic because it is more important now than ever
Probably
before.
ever before. Yeah, absolutely. With the pandemic and all that we've had to endure, it's been a year now.
It's
over
about
a year as we
mental
get,
health.
Here we are in 2021, and we know what we had to go through in 2020. And so many people basically didn't make it. Not through the COVID-19 virus, but because of issues personally, everything up to suicide.
Well, I tell you what, I can vouch to say it's been an emotional roller coaster, just dealing with all the changes that have occurred and just noticing my own responses to how I'm responding to the changes that are happening in the world and the isolation
And I
how
think that's a big
impacting
thing right there.
us.
You mentioned isolation.
Yeah. It's
Moms
been
and
a
dads
tough
having
year.
to go off to work. Children, they don't go to school. Who do they stay with? What do they do? Then other people, elderly, they're at home. They have nobody out. They can't go see folks. People can't come see them. It's a whole different world. It really is. So how do you deal with it? That's the point. And so that's what we're going to be able to do today. So I'm excited about it. Tell us.
So important. So we have partnered with the Mental Health America of Greater Dallas, which we have here in the Murray Media Studio today. MHA Dallas is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. They work to promote mental wellness through community education and policy advocacy. Simply put, MHA Dallas serves as a catalyst to identify, assess, and respond to mental health needs in our community. This is a national organization, and we'll hear more about it today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about our guest?
Our special guest is a licensed social worker, so she knows a thing or two about what we're going to be talking about. Her name is Maddie Worley, Community Outreach Director, the newest member of the, you talk about the Mental Health America of Greater Dallas. She's a part of that team, and she oversees all of the programming in the events, including the following: the WHO program. We'll find out what the WHO stands for. Adolescent Symposium of Texas that you and I will be a part of coming up in February. So that's most exciting. So we'll hear more about that. Mothers and babies. And oh my gosh, in this pandemic, that's something I really want to hear about. And children and parents and moms and dads and how they deal with the young kiddos. Support groups and mental health first aid. So it's a rather lengthy but we're going to be here for the next probably 3 days here on the show. No, just a joke. As she passes out down at the other end. Hello, Maddie. How are you?
Hi, Maddie. Glad
Maddie
you're
Worley,
here.
ladies and gentlemen, our special guest.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me to talk more about my agency.
Well, that's great. We're delighted to have you here. If I was to quickly ask you before we move on with our questions for you, what's been the toughest thing for you personally, knowing what your job is as a social worker, but as you look at where we are today and where we were at the beginning of last year. Last January, nobody knew about this. It was just becoming into what? There's what? Out of where? What? A what? A virus? What? Yeah. We just didn't know. How about it for you? What's been the toughest thing that you've had to endure?
I think as a social worker, it's hard to feel like you're reaching enough people in your services. Not everyone has been able to shift to a virtual type of world. So I think, as a social worker, that's hit a little deeper than maybe for other people.
Is there a reason for that people haven't been able to do that? It's just that this is all new and they don't know what the next move is?
I think a lot of it could stem from lack of resources, lack of access to internet. Their internet might, roll in and out. Or it could just be, they're not able to navigate technology as quickly as others can. Mm-hmm. And so it's finding creative ways to connect with them and support them despite all of that.
And it doesn't matter if it's young, old, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, boy, girl, mom, dad. It doesn't matter, does it?
It's everyone.
Yeah. Doesn't discriminate. And I have to think that connection is so vitally important, not only as a social worker. My goodness, you connect with the community. That's your job. That's your role, to create awareness and make a difference. But the lack of connection, I have to think, is really one of the biggest challenges that we're having today as it relates to mental health. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think it's huge. That connection piece, as humans, we all need that. Even, self-proclaimed introverts need that human connection. And so, we have our Zooms, we have our FaceTiming, but at the end of the day, sometimes you just want to hug somebody or shake a hand.
Yeah, the hugs and the hands are gone, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yes, it's like, I'm giving you an air hug, but there's just something missing from that. And so I think we're seeing a lot of loneliness and isolation pop up for everyone.
Kind of playing off what Angel just asked, as far as the biggest challenge that people, and you talk about the fact that we can't come together, but are there other things that relate to mental health issues? I mentioned right at the very top, suicide. The suicide rate is up, not just in America, but literally all over the world. Are there some things, 2 or 3 things that you might say to somebody that feels like it's no longer something I want to be a part of? I just want to end it all. I don't want to be here. I know my family will miss me. I just don't want to be here. What do you say to someone like that?
Well, I think, when it comes to hearing outcries of suicide, whether it's a young person or an older person, a parent, somewhere they are looking for you to make a connection with them and let them know that they are not alone. And so trying to highlight some of that without guilt tripping them into feeling like, oh, well, this is going to happen because that could just highlight those feelings even more, intensify them.
Do you have statistics off the top of your head that you might share with us as to what the suicide rate for? I saw that it was for, I think it was the 14 to 26 group, or 18 to 26 was the highest age group that we have in America. Is that right?
Yeah, predominantly within the youth population, suicide is actually considered the second leading cause of death for young people.
Really?
Question for you: do you know what number 1 is?
Automobile accidents?
It's accidental death.
Okay.
So I always, say yes, suicide is second leading cause of death, but how many of those accidental deaths could have been someone who
really wanted
suicide?
to do it? Right.
And we just don't have the evidence to show that it was actually a suicide.
That.
Well, I know that when I think back to my teenage years, wasn't too long ago, I do remember feeling...
Franklin Roosevelt was... Okay.
Right. No, you have that feeling like you are invincible. And I know that developmentally, the ego and the mind is starting to develop during that age. So you really do start to believe that the world revolves around you. And for the first time, and so I believe that the pandemic has taken away the external world and what that has done to what they perceive as their entire world has really made a tremendous impact on them and causing, I believe, these high rates of suicide.
No, you're so right, because when we're talking about in mental health first aid, which is a course that we teach, which is designed to give someone, an everyday person, a community member who interacts with someone who might be experiencing a mental health challenge or crisis, it gives you some tools to help you support that person until help can be identified. But one of the things we talk about is highlighting support systems. And a lot of the support systems for not just youth, but everyone is, their social environment, school, friends, peers, a faith community, whatever that is. And so now we've put us in the middle of a pandemic and we're saying it's not safe to go outside. You need to wear a mask. You can't hug people. You can't do this because
all those things disappeared, didn't they?
Yeah, we want to be safe, right?
Right.
So you've taken away a support system that was crucial to their recovery and to their path of wellness.
Yeah, we usually don't know who we are unless it's in relationship to someone else or something else. And so that's how our youth get to know who they are as individuals. And when they don't have that, they lose that sense of identity as well. All having an impact on our mental health. And so as adults as well. So gosh, what can we do? What can people do? And this is where your great agency comes into play to ease some of that stress, that anxiety, the unknowns, the mental health issues, the depression that's associated with all of this stuff. And how can we identify it for one, and how can we be that support system for others that you're talking about?
So I think when it comes to identifying, we actually offer a great tool on our website. We offer free anonymous screening tools. So if you are concerned potentially about your well-being, and you're like, you know what, I'm not feeling my best self, I'm starting to feel concerned. Or if maybe you have a loved one in your life that you're worried about, you can go online, you can take one of our anonymous screening tools for depression, anxiety, substance use, bipolar. We have one for a large variety of things, and it's a quick 2-minute, maybe, little questionnaire, and you just mark, how often you're experiencing things. After you finish it, it will help you identify, some next steps, some resources, some things that you might be able to do to help offset that. So that's one way that we can identify it. Another thing that you can do is call us, and we can help you identify some resources within the community. One thing that the pandemic, I think, has helped with is a lot of our mental health providers were able to quickly shift into a teletherapy mode, and they're able to provide their services through some sort of virtual platform, which made it a little bit easier for someone who's experiencing severe anxiety and is terrified to leave their house. They're still able to check in with their therapist or their counselor outside. But we do recommend, seeking help when needed.
Interesting. Okay, well, let's go from, you're talking more personal in the home place and parental relationships with children and what have you. How about the mental health state of what exists in corporate America, in the workplace, whether you're in a major corporation or maybe you happen to be a waiter in a restaurant that one of the fortunate few that didn't get closed down or shut down, no matter what it might be, wherever your workplace is, what is the dynamic right now, and how can we continue to, make it positive and be productive as we move forward?
We like to say at Mental Health America, we all have mental health, but we may not all have mental illness. So when it comes to workplace mental health, I think, especially right now, we need to make sure that we're creating safe spaces to talk about it.
Now, when you say safe space, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but is that means, hey, if you're having some issues, go down and see so-and-so down here or are you offering an opportunity for people to go to a specific spot in that organization, in that company, in that corporation to talk to someone? Is that what you mean by?
I think, it's going to look different in all of your settings, right? From corporate, high-rise, business, professional,
to even small businesses.
It's going to look different.
Right.
But making sure that you're helping eliminate some of that stigma around mental health. There's a lot of fear talking about mental health. It takes guts to come forward and say, you know what, I'm struggling with depression right now. I'm struggling with anxiety right now, and I'm not doing well. There's a lot of fear to say that in the workplace, fear that, someone's going to say, oh,
well, some people lose their job if they were to say
right.
something like that.
So I think it's about making sure that you are creating a culture within your agency, your place of business, wherever it is, that says, okay, I'm not doing great either. Let's talk about it.
But do those people in those companies exist? Because to me, that I think is the biggest issue. As an outsider looking in, would you not agree? We've talked about this before, Angel, how even your transformation that you talk about, what's the first letter R? Realize, correct? And a lot of times people don't realize that there are issues. And I'm talking about not the person themselves that has the issues, but I'm talking about their employer. Say, hey, you can't get it right, get the devil out of Dodge.
It's a sign of weakness.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Sweep it under the rug and
how do you change
it.
that whole dynamic and that whole mentality? I'm talking in America right now, because you still see a lot of that.
No, it's not going to change overnight.
Right.
We do offer some resources. You can also visit our website. We do offer a toolkit that's designed primarily for HR representatives. That highlights some things that they can do that even are minor steps in starting to build that. I also recommend that employers and businesses look into taking mental health first aid. There's a youth track, but there's also an adult track that you can take to support an adult that's going through a mental health concern. And in that course, it highlights some of the more prevalent mental health disorders that you see. It highlights some of the risk factors that you can spot. If you're a manager, you can say, this person, I'm noticing some things that we talked about in that class. Let me use some of the tools to start a conversation with them to make sure that they're okay and to see if I can support them with something in this path.
What are some of the things that a leader can look for, or maybe an employee can look for in a coworker? And everything is so virtual right now. You're not working one-on-one in the next cube to see if Johnny is having a bad day. But, so in this virtual world, how can we tell? What can we look for?
I think some big things that you could look for, and it is harder being virtual. I think it's easier to maybe wear that mask in a virtual world, but you definitely would want to look for any changes in mood. Everyone is going to have an off day, but if you're seeing a continuous change in mood, that's also going to impact their productivity. They might say some things that imply they're not doing well. Things like things are never going to be better. A lot of that focused on the eternity aspect of things. I'm never going to overcome this. Those are some big clues that something is going on. Change in appearance. I mean, being virtual, yes, I'm not going to lie, I like to wear sweatpants. But, someone who's not taking care of themselves and their appearance, that's another big sign that something might be shifting. So make sure you're checking in with them and just saying, how are you doing?
Yeah, well, I have to say we've all probably gotten a little bit lazier with the pandemic. And I know with my wardrobe, it's been yoga pants and,
Hasn't changed at all.
No. It's nice to get dressed up and come to the studio every once in a while. But it's true, though. I've gotten where putting makeup on is like, ugh, I don't want to have to put makeup on. I have to, And so I can see where people can, when that becomes a chore and you don't want to get dressed and do those things anymore, that could be a sign. That makes a lot of sense, because you really start getting in the gloom and doom of things. Yeah.
For sure.
Wow. That's really interesting.
I'm all about lists, have been for years. Hey, here's our top 10. David Letterman for years. He's got his top 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your top 3? As we kind of head down the home stretch here, I just wondered, what are the top 3 takeaways that you would like to share with our audience today? There are all kinds of things that we go through. The mental rage, the frustration, the suicide, just every aspect of just being so down and so out and just feeling alone and depressed. And the depression that exists so prominently out there in our world today. I just wondered, divorce is up. Everything. It's unbelievable. People you need people, and now we're pushing people away. It's crazy, but it's the reality of it. So, your top 3 of things, the takeaway from our conversation today. This is what we need to remember, folks. Always do this, or try this, or moving forward. This is something you always want to remember. What comes to mind for you?
I think it's important to remember we need to check in with people in our lives, even though it's a little bit more challenging and might look a little bit different now.
Is that to let them know that we're alive and well and doing okay, or are you asking us to do that to check in on those people? Maybe calling mom, calling dad, calling a child that no longer lives at home.
Yeah, somebody who lives alone.
Yeah,
right.
I think it's both.
Okay.
The example I want to share is that I have a grandmother I have 2 grandmothers that live by themselves. And one of my grandmothers has discovered how to use FaceTime. And so I get real busy, but I make it a point to FaceTime with her, even if it's just 10 minutes. Yeah. And I check in and say, hey, how's everything going? Let me tell you what the cats have done. Let me tell you what the dogs have done.
She looks forward to it.
And she looks forward to that.
It's needed, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, so it reminds her that, I'm still here. I may not be able to come visit you, but I'm still here. So check in with your loved ones for them and for yourself. I think the other thing, we didn't talk about this as much, but I think it's important. Check in with yourself. Right now, as a social worker, we hear, it's always self-care. But yeah, taking care of yourself is so important.
And how do you do that in these trying times?
Do things that you enjoy doing. Obviously, if you enjoy hanging out in large groups of people, be safe. But find things that you enjoy doing that you can maybe decompress from work. A lot of us are working from home, and it's been so easy to get sucked into not shutting down the computer. And you look up and you're like, oh my gosh, I've worked from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And you forget to unplug and take care of yourself. So do things that you enjoy doing, because that will help improve. Our mental health is tied to our physical health. So if you're not feeling well because you're stressed out from work, that's going to impact your brain health.
I've noticed some days it's harder than others to make myself even go for a walk. And so when I start to notice that, it's like, oh, no, you're going for a walk. If you don't feel like going for a walk, that's the first sign that you need the walk. And just to walk around the neighborhood. And one of the other terrible things that happened in 2020 was my dog passed away, so I didn't have the reason to go for a walk anymore. So I had to make myself do it. And that's one thing. I mean, I think having that self-awareness, I love that check-in with yourself. That is really huge. Kind of observing your own behaviors and identifying when you're falling into some of these things that you're talking about, that can be on the unhealthier side of our mental health. So, okay. So I love it. So check in with people, check in with yourself. And what would be the third thing?
And then I think the third one would just be to look for ways that you can create those safe spaces that we talked about, because when all this is over, there's going to be another pandemic. It's already here, but I think it's going to be more at the forefront. And Scott, you alluded to this when you talked about, high suicide rates, but people are struggling right now with mental health, anxiety, depression. our surveys, our screening tools, we've seen an increase when from before the pandemic, and now that the pandemic is well underway. We've seen an increase in depression and anxiety specifically, but across the board. So make sure that you're welcoming conversations about mental health, and you're not sort of like, "Ooh, no, that's a dirty topic. We don't talk about mental health." It's okay to talk about it.
Well, when you hear celebrities talking about it or professional athletes, I know I really have an admiration for Dak Prescott, because he admittedly said he had experienced some depression during the pandemic, and it was taking a toll on his mental health. And when you've got people like that saying, "This is real," then others can relate to that. And so that helps the cause in creating that awareness for sure.
No, we're a huge fan of Dak opening up about his mental health.
I bet you are.
It was so important.
Yeah. And I'm sure you wish there were more people like that were in a position that he is as a quarterback of America's team.
Right. And I think it also helps highlight something you mentioned earlier, in that mental health doesn't discriminate.
No, it doesn't.
There are things out there that might put certain individuals at a higher risk of developing a mental illness, but we all have mental health. So I think it highlights, like, Dak's got it going on, and even he is struggling.
Yeah, good point.
Yes, we
making lots of money, has lots of friends, but still has issues.
We had the opportunity to be in a room with some really well-known motivational speakers at one point, sort of in the middle of the pandemic. It was kind of cool. A lot of it was virtual, but at the same time, it was interesting, refreshing for me personally to hear some of the greatest motivational speakers on the planet were struggling.
Yeah.
And these people have the tools, teach other people to have tools to cope with life and, create a better life for themselves. And so when those people are struggling, it's like, okay, this is a real thing. I'm not going to beat myself up for it. I'm going to look in the mirror when it's necessary, and not be afraid to ask for help or pick up the phone and call a friend.
No, absolutely. And I think also something that a lot of motivational speakers, when it comes to mental health, it's rooted in their personal story. And so I think that further highlights it, because it builds that layer of hope that, I overcame this struggle.
Right.
And I'm, I still have my struggles. I'm still dealing with this challenge, but I'm on the other side now. And so, I want to join you on your walk to get to the other side.
Whether it was alcohol, whether it was drugs, whatever it might have been. And so many people have gone through something, and then there's a transformation that, I need to change that. Well, let me tell you where I've been and and boom. Yeah. So hopefully that would help somebody else. One of my favorite expressions that I made up years ago is adversity breeds opportunity. And that is what we have right here. This is adversity in a very different sense. But let's look at the positive. Let's not pull in the negative. So take that adversity and let that breed the opportunity to move forward and be productive and be positive and be successful and get over this and beat it. Rebound from everything that we're looking at and move forward. Well, and that's easier said than done, but it's some of the things that we talk about in Leadership America. That's kind of the focus that we make, and creating those champions of change through a culture of civility, and we've tried to do that. And that brings me to the Adolescent Forum that you've got, the symposium that is coming up that you have put together. And I've got a couple of notes here that just to share with everyone: a virtual conference featuring speakers, workshops, and resources helping you best approach today's unique challenges with racism, grief, trauma, addiction affecting the youth community. And gosh, we don't like to get into politics and racism and all these issues like that, because there's so many sides: the left, the right, the conservative, the liberal. And we see what happens at our Capitol, and whose fault is it, and why does this happen? And so we've tried to put that over here and just say, let's just be positive, productive adults and the most incredible citizens we can be in the greatest country on the face of the earth. And sometimes in this world here in 2020 and 2021, it's like nothing we ever been a part of. So I just wondered what it is that you hope to get. We're delighted to be able to be a couple of the speakers and the presenters at this virtual symposium. But when you say Adolescent Symposium, I talked about some of the things you're going to be dealing with and some of the folks that you'll be directing to. But anything else you'd like to share?
Well, the symposium has been around for 45 years. This is our 45th anniversary.
And probably more different than any other one that you've done before this.
Yeah, it feels like we're back at year one because
right.
we've never done it virtual before. So that's been a fun learning journey.
Or in the midst of a pandemic either.
Right. It's all new for us, but we're really excited because we have brought in a lot of diverse speakers for it. But the idea behind it is that, adolescents, they have a wide spectrum of things going on. And, they have struggles with mental health as well. 1 in 5 children, youth, adolescent, will experience some sort of mental health challenge.
Wow.
By the age of 14, that's typically when, if there is a mental health illness, by the age of 14, nearly half of them will have manifested into the mental illness. So it's important to start to try to address it early so we can help establish healthy coping strategies, stress management tools, to best support those youth as they navigate all these complex emotions that come with being an adolescent.
Was that
plus
prior
mental
pandemic,
health.
the 1 in 5?
Yes, this was all prior. I would suspect
it's probably a lot more than that now.
I would suspect it's a little bit higher now. The funny thing about stats, Scott, is that we can only report what is being reported to us. And when it comes to youth and mental health, it does get challenging because typically it's based on people who are in a treatment facility receiving counseling, and they're willing to say, yes, I'm dealing with this. But yeah, so the Adolescent Symposium, it is where, the community comes together. We see a lot of mental health professionals, a lot of individuals from our behavioral health hospitals and our hospitals come together, teachers, counselors, faith-based ministries come together, and they attend these workshops to, build their toolbox of things that they can do to support a young person. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, maybe I haven't been impacted by this, but I have 5 youth that I'm working with who are being impacted by this. So what can I do to support them the best? And that's what our speaker lineup, we try to bring in, experts in their field, and that
go ahead and feel free to say that again if you'd like.
Experts in their field to come and give us, best practices and things that we can do to support the youth.
We're both very excited about it. And it's coming up on February
11th.
Right. And how can somebody get involved?
Yeah, so you can get involved by visiting our website and clicking on the Adolescent Symposium. There's a little banner.
And your website is?
www.mhadallas.org. MHADallas.org.
Okay, Mental Health America, Dallas.org.
Yep.
Okay.
And then you can register there. We have 2 packages, so you can get one for just the full one-day event where you can attend our keynote with Dr. Dan Siegel, and then 3 choice workshops, or you can do the upgraded ticket for the 30-day access, and you can see all the workshops because they're all so wonderful. So you can purchase either one, and you can contact us if you have questions.
Fantastic.
What a great event.
Yes,
and
for sure.
We're so honored to be a part of it and talk about change and how change, when you have a better understanding of how change shows up in your life, how you respond to that change, and then we provide a way to navigate through this natural cycle that we all go through. So creating more awareness around that the 6 stages of transformation that we go through. So that's what our workshop is about. We're excited to have this opportunity.
And that workshop is so important this year because we're all going through some change, right? Some collective grief, collective change. And so I think that, our audience will really appreciate the tips that you guys give us.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, Maddie Worley, we can't thank you enough for stopping by. Continued success, and
Yes.
thanks for all you
Yes.
do to make our world a more positive, productive world, especially in the wake of all the mental illness that does exist today because of what we're all enduring. It's tough, but we need to change it.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody can be a part of it by reaching out to friends, family, and then, as you mentioned already, helping yourself
Mm-hmm.
by being strong and being focused and being directed. And it's okay. Get it happen.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for
Keep up-
having me.
Keep
You're
up the
very
good
welcome.
work.
And I want you
Doing
to
great.
know this is your probably last visit to us here on Leadership America, and somebody else is making her last appearance on Leadership America as well. This woman to my left.
Yes, for all of our viewers and listeners out there, I want to say a special thank you for tuning in. I thoroughly enjoyed this opportunity to co-host with the one and only Scott Murray. You've
Drum
taught
roll,
me,
please.
You've taught me a lot. It's been a lot of fun,
Yeah, from
and
radio
coming to
shows
the
to
Murray
podcast
Media
to-
podcast
yeah.
studios has been one of my greatest joys, especially during this pandemic. What you guys have done here at Murray Media is incredible.
Thank you.
And it's been an adventure, to say the least, quite a journey. So, but like so many other people during this COVID pandemic times that we're living in, a lot of changes are occurring in people's lives. And so that is the case with mine. So some of it, I am taking change into my own hands and creating a little bit more flexibility and freedom for the next year or so. And so I will not be able to come into the studio on a regular basis. Therefore, Scott will be doing what he does best and taking it from here. So I will be here in spirit.
Spirit.
Yes.
From a mental illness standpoint, spirit, is that one I should be? Is that a positive?
Yes. Being the free spirit that
it's
I
all
am.
good that she's
Yeah.
It's all
sending
good.
positive vibes,
Oh,
right?
okay.
You got it, always.
Okay.
Got to have positive vibes.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, again, Maddie, thanks so much. Be
Yeah,
safe.
thank you.
Be safe. Stay healthy. And Angel, you do much the same. Thank you, my friend. Continued success wherever it might be, whatever it might be that you're doing.
Appreciate it.
And in the meantime, I'm simply going to sign off for us all and say, on behalf of Leadership America, I'm Scott Murray.
And I'm Angel Carlton. Feel free to check out the website too at leadershipamerica.net.
Till next time, stay safe.